Freedom of Information Hour on the Focus on Liberia platform. Today, I am extremely humble and privileged to have two distinguished Liberian intellectuals, Mr. Menipeka Domwe and Mr. Abraham Bilete. They are here to share light on political unfoldings within the Republic of Liberia. I'm your regular host, Julius T. Jaesen II, on the Freedom Information Hour, the Focus on Liberia platform. Right. So today we going to be looking at the recently held by-elections within the Republic of Liberia. As you may be aware, and you are in the know, we have by-elections in 4 electoral districts, which we all saw the CPP losing all of the 4 electoral districts, as well as the ruling Congress for Democratic Change. So I've invited two distinguished Liberian intellectuals to say to you or give to you the perspective, what does it mean for the CPP as an opposition? And the two persons I've invited, they are from the opposition camp. We made effort to invite somebody from the ruling Congress for Democratic Change. They have turned down our invitation. I was invited. Yeah, we reach out to them to be able to share their own light on how it is about the CDC going forward, moving toward 2023 senatorial and 2023 presidential election, but they have turned down our opportunity. So we have Mr. Menipeka Domwe and Mr. Abraham Bilede. They will not only be talking about the recently held senatorial by-election. They will share light on Ambassador Joseph Yuma Baga, who is now the head of the CPP, the political leader of the CPP. He has recently visited the United States of America. They will give their perspective on his visitation. What does it mean for our country? Was the intent of the visitation achieved? They will share light on that as well. So, Menipeka, you are welcome to the focus on Liberia, the Freedom Information Hour.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. We also like to welcome Mr. Abraham Ryan Bility.
Thank you, Julius. Thank you. I'm glad to be back on your show. Thank you.
Okay, right. With no time to delay, we want to go into what we have called the both of you to give you a varying perspective on the trending political issues within our country. First, recently there was an election, there was by-elections that were held in Maserati, not Maserati, but in 4 electoral districts within the Republic of Liberia. You know about Bomi, Bon, Grand Jide, and the other county. But that election wasted the CPP losing in all of the 4 electoral districts. So we want to hear your perspective first. What does it say about the CPP? What does it reflect about the CPP? To get your general perspective, right? So we start with Menipeka Domwe.
Okay, Julius, sorry, I'm having issues with my camera. All right, okay. I think it's much better now. Yeah, so I think it comes down to candidate selection. It also speaks to the question of whether the CPP is leaving out other important opposition actors. So the opposition in Liberia is bigger than the CPP. The CPP is a subset, but it is not the entire opposition. I think it's important for anyone looking at these results carefully to note one thing. All of the seats were won by opposition candidates. The CPP needs to reach out to other political parties like the PUP. There are other independent actors in the various constituencies that are within the opposition community that the CPP, if it wants to represent the Liberian opposition fully, has to open up. It can't just be those 4 parties and without coordination with other opposition actors. I think that's the first thing. The next thing, the next thing there is that the Joseph Boakai leadership, although it Joseph Boakai took over and it wasn't, he didn't have much time before the election, but even the galvanization of the CPP base, he didn't manage to have a single event where all 4 political leaders were present. That's one of the other. That's one of the issues that took away from the quality of campaigning. But just to say that the election result demonstrated that CPP needs to reach out to other opposition players to try and expand our reach.
Is it that the CPP as an institution has not been able to reach out to a larger opposition community, or is it as a result of the internal wrinklings within the CPP that has caused the defeat of the CPP across the 4 electoral districts?
The wrangling has a role, but I don't want us to exaggerate it, because then we will ignore other important things. One of the things that is structurally wrong with the way the CPP approach candidate selection is that it's apportioned by party. So they will give this one to ALP, they'll give this one to LP, they'll give this one to Unity Party. It shouldn't be. The CPP need
what do you suggest? What do you suggest that should be?
We need a more robust and competitive candidate selection process, even at the legislative level. We need for people to compete, and we need the decisions to be made not in Monrovia, but at these constituency level, at these places. So, for example, let's not bog all 4 of the races together. Let's take them in turns so that we understand it better. Say Nimba County, for example, the only way the CPP could have won would have been to attract Sam Brown to their ranks. Sam Brown had paid his dues. He has been steadily building his political constituency over the period of 15 years, focusing mainly on micro loan and other small business development services to women in his district. He came second to Jeremiah Kung. The other person that could have done the trick for the CPP was Edith Gonglo Ware. I participated in an assessment of the county's Nima County political situation as at May in 2021. I did some work for a client, and it came out that Edith Gonglo Ware would have won had she contested a representative seat of that district by some 49% of the votes. Next to her would have been Sam Brown. Okay, so regardless of the divisions in our ranks, there are some other fundamental things that we have to also consider. We need to engender this. We need to be committed to internal democracy. We need to be very committed to internal democracy so as to lay the basis for other politicians to be attracted to our brand. So if I'm a local politician, I'm working as an independent, I don't have a political party behind me, I'll be more attracted to the CPP because I know if I go there, there will be fair and open competition so that my popularity can give me the ticket. But as long as we do opaque backdoor discussions about who goes where, that would be problematic. In Bond County, the United Party made a strategic error. The United Party relied on the numbers, the historical numbers of Prince Kemumwe. They relied on the argument that Prince Kemumwe was the first elected representative of District Number 2, Bond County, and that he had won 2 successive elections there, and he stood on his popularity in the district to spring forward at the county level and defeated 8 candidates, including myself, in the last senatorial election. United Party relied on those historical figures to turn over the candidate selection process to Prince Mui. They asked Prince Mui to select a candidate. Prince Mui selected a candidate, came back a few weeks later and said that he had picked the wrong candidate. This is after they have filed this candidate's nomination. The disgraceful thing is that when you tallied up Prince Mui's first candidate, who was Joshua Betta, and his second candidate, who was Edward Bo, when you tallied up their votes, they are still short in comparison to Colère, who came from the PUP. Colère from the PUP is being backed by a new force in Bond County.
Colère have worked with the former senator that were unseated by Prince Kemumwe.
Yes, but Colère, more importantly, was supported heavily by Edward Kafia. Edward Kafia is making waves in Bond County. He started to prosecute a 2023 senatorial bid from January 2021. He's shown staying power, continued to invest in various community projects up and down the county. He lent Colère his brand, and Colère won, even though Joel Howard Taylor was also there campaigning for Melvin Savage, even though Nathaniel McGill brought the full weight of the Liberian presidency in a small electoral constituency, pouring out millions of LD, still failing to stop Colère. So the local forces and the local dynamics, Monrovia has too much power in deciding these candidates in these faraway districts where they are not connected to and they haven't studied properly. So the CPP has a lot to learn. Apart from reconciliation, reconciliation is the easy answer. We were united and we lost districts. For example, there was no conflict between us in district number 13 in Montserrado County when Cornelia Cooper lost. We also had a single purpose in 2020 when we feel that candidates in almost all the counties, we only won 6. We never did a post-mortem. We just ran into the street and started celebrating after Darius DeLong was successful in Montserrado. We are doing shallow level calculation and it's dangerous.
Okay, thank you. That was the voice of Menipeka Domwe. Menipeka Domwe is a member of the opposition collaborating political party. I don't know, so what is, are you still a member of the Liberty Party?
100%. I'm his former Deputy Secretary General. I play the role now of a very active partisan. No executive position. I only assert my membership rights forcefully.
Even though your Liberty Party is divided, some folks within the Liberty Party are supporting Kumi presidency and others are supporting Bwaka. But let's come to Mr. Ibrahim Belete to share light on the recently held senatorial by-election to give a perspective as to how does he see the recently held election, what does it mean for the opposition collaborating political party, and what need to be done going forward. So, Mr. Belete.
Yeah, I like the kind of zeal that my friend Menipeka brings to the conversation. You know, he's energized whenever he's engaging such kind of conversation, and I tend to agree with him on some of the issues he stressed. That especially when it comes to the way we tend not to localize our some processes, I think that played a role in defeat. But the issue of the structural, I differ with him on the issue of the perceived structural selection process where parties are given counties. I think before that happens, it's not that
Before you
counties
go,
have already been pre-marked by.
Mr. Benedict, Mr. Benedict, before you go follow, I think I said senatorial election. It was a representative election. You know, the senatorial election was election that were held across the 15 geographical subdivisions across the country that wasted the CPP as an opposition political party, winning majority of the seats. That was last year, December. But the election that we're discussing is the recently held representatives elections across 4 electoral districts representative election. So that's why I wanted to gush your experience on how you look at it. I make a mistake and say it was a senatorial election, so you can give your view going forward. It's just for our audience.
Yeah, so as I said, that I tend to agree with my friend Manny Parker that he stressed some very important things that we in the CPP will need to consider, especially the point of localizing our selection process, where our people are giving us the real data that we can be able to use to be able to project to project a candidate, instead of just making it centralized because one person claims to have some kind of control over a particular geographical locale. So when we get the people engaged, we do a lot of data collections to be able to inform, the candidates. And he could not have said it more. And that's why our framework document also provides that we have the ability to bring other opposition political parties on board, because there could be a candidate who could be in the race and win, and that candidate is winnable, but that candidate may not form part of one of the 4 constituent original parties of the CPP, but maybe in other smaller parties. If we can engage and we bring all of those people on board, it's going to be a CPP victory. But there are a lot of lessons to learn from that, from these elections. But don't forget to understand that out of the 4 counties, there are only 2 counties that CPP initially had representatives, like Bong, Menpaka's choice about the Prince Moy, and Bombing with Edwin Snow, who later resigned from the CPP, and became an independent. So, yeah, there are important lessons to learn, and I'm not sure, as Menpaka rightly put it, I'm not sure it's a little internal wrangling within the CPP. I don't think it's a major contributing factor. While it's true that it may have contributed to some of the turnout of our supporters, but I'm not sure that led to the debate. If we assess candidates per county or per county, we get to see some of the candidates who put forth just from the results that we have now available to us, suggest that those candidates were far below the possibility of winning, but yet went on and put in our ticket. So it's a whole compound of issues that we need to analyze to be able to go forward with the CPP selection process, especially as we engage both the presidential and the legislative elections in 2023.
So you think that the collaborating political party and the way they distributed the seat, the Unity Party, this is your electoral district, this is your county, and this, the ANC, the ALP, and the Liberty Party, and you think that internally those political parties, right, have not been able to project a candidate that significantly have impacted the very electoral district that they live in? That has been the contributing factor.
Use the words you've used in your question. However, what I think, we did not do enough, we did not collect enough data to inform some of the decisions we made with the issue of the candidates that we projected. Does that mean that there was no analysis done? Perhaps there was some analysis done, as Manny Parker tried to emphasize with the issue of Prince Moy. Prince Moy was seen by the Unity Party as that person who
we lost ability there. So, Mr. Menipaka, Mr. Domwe, you talk about, I think the CPP needs to do a broader consultation there. So, do you think the recently held elections across 14 electoral districts, right? Electoral districts across our country, do you think, does it signal that the CPP as an opposition political party stand a little chance in 2023?
Absolutely, absolutely not.
Am I on?
Yes,
Am I on, Julius?
You are on. You are on. Belede, you are on.
I'm trying to respond to the question Julius
Oh,
posed to me.
we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, Belede. We can go to MD for MD to give a perspective.
I think any analyst that relies on the results of these 4 constituencies to make a national projection will be grossly incompetent and will not therefore yield a realistic assessment of the state of play. Those 4 by-elections do not show that CPP is crumbling. It shows that CPP does not control the entire map, that there are gaps, and that there are other strong opposition players that the CPP will have to reckon with, include. So the combined total of the voters affected by this by-election is a little over 100,000 voters in 4 electoral constituencies. You have to understand that the 1985 Constitution makes electoral constituencies just about 20,000. So this is affecting just around 100,000 voters in 4 constituencies spread across the country. Is not enough for anyone to project to measure the impact of CPP. No other political party outside of the CPP has a viable chance at the presidency. None of the parties outside of the CPP have a viable chance at the presidency. And so they would have to ally with either the governing CDC or CPP for them to have any serious sway at the polls. So definitely it will be erroneous for anyone to rely on these election results as a way of calculating 2023. The people that this negatively affect is the governing CDC, because
how does it affect the governing CDC?
Because after the elections, after the senatorial midterm elections, when CPP picked up a whooping 6 senatorial seats in the main constituencies that represent over 50% of the voting population, the CDC announced a new strategy. They were going to pivot to the interior. They were going to pivot to the interior because they said Monrovia is too noisy, it's too the critical voices are here, the mass media is here. We are going to pivot to the interior. They pivoted to the interior. They executed the pivot to the interior over about 10 months, and the results came back. Interestingly, all of these districts were located in the interior. The Bomi County district is in the interior. The Grand Julius is in the interior. So they lost across the interior. This is post the Nathaniel McGill nationwide tour. And this is after intense involvement in these districts. I've heard CDC strategists say, oh, these independent candidates are surrogates, and that it is part of a political strategy that will be extended into 2023. If that is to be taken seriously, will George Weah run as an independent? Now, why do people lose when they carry CDC emblem, but they win when they carry when they go independent?
Independent.
Yeah, that's not good for CDC. It means the needle is pointing away from them. And so it's not a big deal for CPP if CPP can make the necessary adjustment. Number one, make candidate selection competitive. Move away from consensus and focus on competition. Follow the numbers, data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions, not emotion, not tradition, not sympathy, data.
Okay, Belete. Oh, we just lost Belete there. So you think the approach of the CPP in terms of following consensus as compared to having a primary, or what the people themselves in the electoral district decided, has been the contributing factor to why the CPP as a collaborating political party has lost
It's a major,
all of the electoral districts.
yeah, it's a major factor. When candidates participate in a primary, in a competitive primary,
You know what, MD? In 2020, we saw the very same approach that was used by the opposition CPP, where they subdivided the electoral district, meaning they say this district belongs to the Liberty Party. This county rather, we give this county to the ALP, we give the county to ANC, we give the county to Unity Party. However, the situation was in 2020, we saw the CPP as a collaborating political party winning majority of the counties over the ruling CDC. So what do you think now has been the contributing factor? Because the same formula was used then in 2020 in the senatorial by-election. They used the formula now in 2021, and the very electoral district, the CPP lost to the CDC, and the CDC too as well lost.
Okay, let's zero in on the quality of the victors. So in Monserrado, Abraham Darius Dillon was already incumbent. He was already incumbent. And so if you are looking to assess his viability, that was predetermined by the 2019 by-election to replace Jared Sharif. Dillon had mobilized the consciences of Monserrado and was clearly in the lead. It was playing for, it spoke for itself. And he was already an incumbent. Let's go to Bon County. In Bon County, the person that won, Prince Kemumwe, had a string of victories. I was one person that said we needed to have primaries there. They didn't do primaries, but they did a lot of consultation, and their assessment was right. They won that. In Nimba, they had a competitive primary, but the candidate was very strong, Jeremiah Cole. And our collaboration, the CPP, was not enough. For example, Garrison Yelu should have been in there. We didn't have a way of stopping Tar from running. Tar one way. We didn't have a way of stopping him. There was no legal way, because you see, individuals cannot be a member of CPP. No individual is a member of CPP. You cannot, as an individual, be a member. CPP only admits political parties. And so ANC is a member of CPP. But ANC is a separate legal person from Tai Wongwe, from Alexander Benedict Cummings, and so on and so forth. And sometimes party interests and individual interests can clash. And ANC has no legal capacity to stop, to have stopped what his name, Tai, from running. The CPP, I think, should have been able to build a broader coalition, owing to the fact that Prince Johnson was supporting Jeremiah Kung. We should have reached out to other independents in that race to narrow the playing field and build enough numbers. We didn't do it. We spent a lot of time crying over spilled milk. Tai was a legally qualified individual that could run. We couldn't stop it. We decided to cry. But there are other ways we could get the 5,000 votes. We could reach out to Garrison Yelu. We could have reached out to Sam Brown, who just won in district number 1. We could have reached out to different other people outside of the CPP to support our candidate in exchange for a lot of things. You know, we that's why I'm saying our ground operation needs to improve. But I just wanted to say that it's not one thing. It's not going to be just one thing. The solution is a salad. You got to do more data collection.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Let me just Monday. He's been having some internet fluctuation. So, Mr. Abraham Ryan Belete, we talking about a recently held by elections in 4 electoral districts that saw and wasted the CPP that you belong to, losing all the 4 electoral districts. What do you think? We want to have you, give you the opportunity to share your perspective. What does it mean for the CPP going to war or forcing the war 2023 presidential election? Does it say a lot about the CPP that the chances of the CPP in 2023 is most likely impossible? I want for you to get your perspective.
But Julius, if you're using the just ended elections results to be able to project the possible win of the 2023 elections, then I think you'll be doing injustice to the electoral process. Given that the candidates who won, so like in bombing, it was an independent. Does that mean that an independent presidential candidate will win the presidency? In bombing, in bomb.
Wait.
PUP, does it mean that the CPP have become so eroded? So every elections presents a room and a situation to rethink, to observe, to run some analysis and see what your strengths were and what your weaknesses were, and then how you can rekindle your strengths to be able to make some progress. So yeah, whether we have won, whether we have won elections or whether as it is, there's still a need. There will have been a need, even if we have won elections, for us to sit down and put some numbers together and see what we needed to do better that we did not do, how we could have strategized to get to win more votes. But the 2020 election is going to be a binary election, and it depends on how.
What do you think that might have led to the defeat of the CPP as an opposition political party?
But we've been talking this. There are several factors. Perhaps some of the candidates that we projected to the people, were they connected with the people, were they candidates that could easily win their opponents. So there were a lot of things that went into the selection process that may have led to our defeat. But as we've been talking this from the beginning, that it's about time that we rethink and see how we can localize our politics, especially when it comes to the legislative seats, because it has to be. We have to be able to project people that are connected with the people, that the people have trust and confidence in to lead them. It can't just be because it comes from a political institution. So even if, for instance, even if Bond County was given to the Unity Party and Menipaka Dumoy belongs to the Liberty Party, but he has the ability and prospects to win, it would just be fair enough to have Menipaka Dumoy on the CPP ticket. So these are the kind of conversation we need to be having. But it does not in any way suggest, because we lost 4 elections, that we are in a bad position to win the presidential slate in 2023. I think what the recent by-elections have presented is that the CDC, the governing establishment, should be more worried than the CPP, because with all of the engagements that they had, even within Grand Jia that had predominantly and from time immemorial been the CDC stronghold, they've always won all of the seats, to have invested so much in that election, and then yet they could not win the seat of Ingranjide. So it speaks to some erosion of the popularity. So that means the CPP, if we analyze all of the variables and we put ourselves together and be able to project candidates that are connected with the people, that are local with the people, we can win both the presidential slate and the legislative seats in 2023.
So are you telling me, the two of you, that the CPP as an opposition political party projected candidates that the people in the various electoral districts do not appreciate. Right?
Could that be
do
the
not
reason?
Appreciate.
It could be one of the reasons.
What the fundamental reason? I want for you to link it up. Do you really think that the internal wrinklings, the rigmaroles within the CPP, to some extent, where we have the various party accusing this person in terms of the alteration of CPP document, where CPP internal issue has been split over to the public, do you think that might have contributed to the defeat of the CPP, or it was as a result of the CPP not putting forth a candidate that suits the appreciation of the people in the various districts? And you can answer.
Julius, electioneering, political electioneering is a science that you need to analyze the data. You need to collect data. I would be very biased, and if I should sit there and say with all the data that inform my assertion to say that it was as a result of that, what we could do, we could just infer that, well, there were some issues, but to put it squarely on the internal wrangling, as to use the word, within the CPP as a major factor for that.
You can make an educated guess. You can make an educated guess. Right? You can make an educated guess.
I just said to you that I think we use the data.
You can make an educated guess to say, oh, the internal wrinklings within the CPP might have contributed towards the defeat of the CPP in the 4 electoral districts, or it's as a result of the CPP not picking a formidable candidate within the electoral district that suits the appreciation of the people. You can make that appreciable that educated guess.
Many Parker narrated.
I don't know which data are you referring to? But MD, you can also come in. Villages facing some internet.
Let me just say the internal wrangling, has very little impact on the voters' decisions in those constituencies. Nobody could defeat Edwin Snow unless you build a massive coalition in Bomi. That you are a coalition at a national level doesn't mean that you are an effective coalition at the district level. All politics is local, and representatives have to be very close to their people. And so, for me, I don't think it's the internal wrangling. I think it's poor quality candidate selection, period.
Okay, so moving forward, what do you think that needs to be done by the collaborating political party in terms of future election, especially as we approach 2023?
I think, first of all, the collaborating political parties need to increase their investment. They need to increase their investment into institutionalizing the CPP. The CPP need functional offices in all of the counties, and they need regional coordination centers, regional hubs. The CPP needs to engage the country in earnest. The CPP also need to cleave to the framework document. No one should try to skirt around it. Absolute commitment to the framework document will restore public confidence in the CPP and make it more attractive to other opposition actors. A rule-based system. So once you are in a rule-based system, you don't have to like each other. Everyone just follow the rules and there will be progress. And so the rule-based system, the CPP needs to also start preparing for primary. It is clear that we are in December and there is no consensus candidate, so it's clear that this thing is going to go to primaries. So the CPP, the job of Joseph Juma Bwaka right now is to prepare the CPP for primaries. And to prepare the CPP for primaries, you need to do the voter perception survey, and that has to be it. The CPP needs to focus on executing the steps laid out in the framework document that's supposed to lead to the ultimate selection of a standard bearer.
So do you think a refusal of the CPP to have a consensus or a primary who automatically lead toward a victory for we are second term? The failure of the CPP as an opposition political party that Liberian people believe in will obviously lead to a possibility of a we are re-election?
No. Look, the voters will not be demotivated. The voters are determined. This is a voters-driven political environment at the moment. No politician is brainwashing anybody. These voters are determined. These voters have a grievance. They have purpose in their minds to disgrace and dethrone WIA, because they're trying to avenge, the voters are trying to avenge economic hardship. They believe that the WIA administration has undermined their quality of life. Those who are in the civil service believe that about 30% of their regular income was stolen from them by the CDC and its harmonization program. And so these voters have grudge. They have singled out WIA for punishment. And nothing happening in the opposition bloc is going to affect them. Let me break it down.
Yeah, MD, to stop you there, I agree that the voters have an issue with Ambassador WIA and the management of the country. But even if they will have an issue, the opposition as an opposition political party must be able to demonstrate leadership to them that if they vote against George WIA, a vote towards the opposition will guarantee a better Liberia. Do you think that the opposition CPP has been able to demonstrate to the opposition CPP has been able to demonstrate to the Liberian people and those that you believe that have an issue with the poor management of our country? Has the CPP been able to demonstrate to the Liberian people that they will do things distinctly from what we are doing in our country or the ruling party?
Let me tell you, the Liberian voters are very highly motivated. They do not question they do not question Cummings' ability to lead. They see George WIA as the worst possible president that they have experienced in recent time. Look, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf lifted the bar, the taste of the Liberian people for leadership. It went up higher. And so WIA execution has been sloppy, and it has caused real anger at the base. Why else would he be losing Monserrado and losing districts in Grand Jida? Grand Jida is the spiritual capital of the CDC. These are all signs and symptoms of anger. And the formula that a divided opposition equals victory for incumbent, that formula did not survive the 2017 test. In 2017, the opposition was divided, but they won, because you have to understand in the context of 2017, the opposition included Charles Walker Bromsky, George Manuel WIA, Bernard Wilfred Ure, Alexander Benedict Cummings, Prince Yelube Johnson. All these individuals staged separate presidential bid. It was the CDC and two smaller parties that won. It was not the entire opposition being united. Okay? And so opposition division does not equal automatic victory for incumbent. The 2017 election is the hard test of that.
Okay, to take you lastly on the point why we can't accountability, are you trying to tell us that even with the depth of division within the CPP, with Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings going on his own, with Mr. Bwaka, Ambassador Bwaka, single-handedly running on his own merit against George WIA, do you think that, given your assertion, that it will ensure an opposition, whether Bwaka or Kumi victory in 2023?
What I was saying to you,
if Bwaka is running on his own merit, if Kumi is running on his own merit, will it ensure an opposition victory against Weah? Or do we need a united opposition to win George Weah?
Yeah, let me say this to you. If Joseph Boakai and Cummins present separate tickets, then the first round of the election is going to be the de facto CPP primary. But just that it will have 2 million voters, majority of whom will be opposition voters. The opposition voter will not surrender their anger. They will not neglect their hatred for the quality of leadership that we has offered. They will not abandon their own agenda simply because the politicians are fighting. The voters also control the politicians. The voters also have a way of pressuring the politicians. What they will do is that within the first round, they will narrow down on who they actually want to face Weah. And once that is done, let's say, for example, Boakai makes it to the second round. Even if Alexander Cummins do not endorse him, Boakai will receive the votes of Cummins voters or of the independent voters. The hardliners Cummins people will say, we're not going to vote for Boakai. And if Cummins makes it to the second round and the United Party, the executives of the United Party decide they're not going to endorse Cummins or vote for him, Greater Liberia, in terms of the Liberians that are not part of party politics, they're not in any clique, those Liberians will go and overwhelmingly vote for the alternative. And so I don't see a way out for Weah, except he can fix the economy, except he can stabilize prices for the next 23 months or 22 months before the voters get a chance to decide. As it stands now, he looks like he's in a pretty bad shape.
So, okay, we lost Bilete on the line. So are you telling your public and the listening audience that what we are experiencing now within the country, especially there has been a unity that has kept the CPP together from 2018 up to the period of 2020, where we saw the CPP winning majority of the counties, where in the recently held senatorial election across our country. Are you telling, with the split within the CPP, it does not guarantee a Weah re-election?
No, it doesn't. Weah re-election is tied to economic conditions in the country. If the economy improves, it doesn't matter what the opposition does, Weah will get a second chance. If the economy fails to improve, the opposition will absolutely be victorious. The grievance in Monrovia is economic. It's about the cost of transportation from Broad Street to Douala. It's about how much I have to pay for a bag of rice and how that price keeps fluctuating. The problem, the anger in Monrovia is about the economy.
Okay, sorry, there was an interference from Bilete. Bilete is having some internet fluctuation, so he tried to call online. Okay, Bilete is on the line. Bilete on the line. We soon conclude. Bilete is on the line. So Bilete, we're taking on WhatsApp. We'll take Bilete on WhatsApp. Bilete, we can hear your view. The CPP as a his internet is fluctuating. We're trying to lose Bilete on the line. But okay, we'd like to move, MD would like to move to Ambassador Joseph Human Boakai, who is now the arrowhead of the CPP, was recently in the United States of America. He went on a visit in the US. Where he went on a visit in the US.
Yeah.
We want to get your view on the former vice president visit to the US as well. it was achieved. The motive of visitation to the US was achieved. How to say benefit the CPP as a collaborating political party. We want to hear your view.
Well, first of all, Joseph Boakai didn't position himself as a CPP leader in America. He went as a Unity Party warrior trying to recapture power. It was very much a Unity Party a push for greater legitimacy in the diaspora. The objectives that were set for the trip were too high. They weren't met. Obviously, the kind of high-profile government officials Boakai had hoped to meet and rub shoulders with did not become available. He ended up meeting low-level local government officials. The trip itself was a low-profile one. In terms of fundraising, those objectives were also not met in terms of dollars and cents. It was particularly striking that it was while Boakai was away that the Unity Party headquarters was taken away, and they had to move. They had to move offices. As it stands now, the Unity Party does not have a functional office. They've shown us a building on Facebook. As their new home, soon to be their new home. The truth is that they have not started to operate from there, thereby denying the CPP a operational headquarters, because as per the document, the headquarters of the collaborative political party that is managing the rotational chairmanship should be the legitimate headquarters of the CPP. And so I think Joseph Boakai is on his back foot. I think his strategist made a mistake. Confusion in the CPP makes it difficult for Boakai to raise funds because it places more doubt on his capacity to win. And what if the other guy wins? And because he doesn't have a good resource base, and he will need external financing, external to the Unity Party. We didn't see Unity partisans express confidence in Boakai's capacity to win with their purse. I understand at one fundraising meeting, they raised around portrait $900. That's nothing. If the people have confidence in Boakai, they are not expressing it with their wallets.
Yeah, because I've been following the social media. There have been tons of complaints raised by supporters of Boakai, accusing even members of the Unity parties that the Unity parties supporters are divided. Some are more loyal to former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf than they are loyal to Ambassador Joseph Newman Boakai. And they've been talking about Joseph Boakai lacks the finances, the capital to defeat Ambassador Weah. So as a political analyst, Menipeka Domwe, do you think that the issue of finances, capital, has an important role to play in the politics of 2017 in terms of a victory for the opposition?
Yes, the question I will ask you is that how many gallon of gas do you think you need to visit Sanukole from Monrovia? If you're using an SUV, to fill the tank is about $70 to $79, if not $80+. You need reserve. When you're coming back, how many people are you going to take with you to consultation? You can't take anybody out of town without providing DSA for them. The cost of campaigning is clear. Resource plays a key role because logistics is key. You have to crisscross the country. You have to have resources to protect the votes. They have over 15,000 polling precincts across the country. You got to make sure that they are properly manned. The individuals that will be manning them, they will have to be compensated. And so if you're going to engage George Weah, and if you're going to run a nationwide campaign, you need resources. The last time Boakai ran, he ran from the vantage point of the vice presidency. Mind you, Joseph Boakai office were receiving $2 million United States dollars per annum. Henry Costa is crying that the office of the pro tem is receiving a little over 1 million or even receiving 1.8 million. He thinks it's too much. But the man he supports, Joe Boakai, used to receive over 2 million United States dollars as his budgetary allocation on an annual basis. He never accounted for a dime of that money. Also, businesses were doing favors for him. There were people in the Salif government that he recommended, and they got their job as a result of his recommendation, and they were very loyal to him throughout his process. He had 19 senators that endorsed, 19 senators, the same senators that were accused of taking bribes and taking brown envelopes. They were the ones that helped bankroll his campaign. The net effect is that resource matter, because you have to move across the country. It costs petroleum. You cannot express yourself if you don't have enough fuel, because yes, you can make the argument in Monrovia, but then the people in Boncanton need to see you. The people in Maryland need to see you. The people in Lofa need to see you. People vote their interest. They vote who they believe in. And for people to believe in you, you got to interact with them. So obviously, resource is going to matter.
Okay, yeah, definitely. So, do you think that the recent visit of the former vice president did not achieve its intended objective?
Yeah, I already said that. If it's money they went for, they didn't get it. If they went to do high-profile meetings, they didn't meet with a single high-level U.S. government official. They didn't even make it to Washington, D.C. to see any of the folks that mattered. No meeting. Look, because of his stature as former vice president, he should have at least been meeting people at the White House and meeting people in the U.S. State Department, because he was at such a high level in government. When Ellen Johnson Sirleaf goes to New York or when she goes to Washington, the quality of people she meets, Boakai should be meeting people like that.
So, what do you think, to hear your perspective, what do you think that can be done for an opposition victory?
I said it already. Stick to the framework agreement. Follow the rule-based system. Compete. Accept the outcome. And that's it, really. Follow the framework document. Embrace competition. Do not feel entitled. We all need each other. And let the parties
before we go to the comment section, right? So do you think, okay, no, we're concluding. We concluding. We have less than 50. We get less than 10 minutes to conclude. If we stick to the framework document, right, as the framework document says, and we go to the primary, and Ambassador Joseph Boakai wins the primary, he does not have the capital. He does not have the capital with the members of the CPP, Cummins, and the rest of the people who are members of the CPP be willing to raise the capital to support Boakai?
I think Cummins will give Boakai.
If Boakai wins, if we go to the primary, right, where Joseph Boakai wins and he becomes the ultimate choice of the CPP in the primary, democratically elected, with Mr. Cummins that you support and the rest of the collaborating political party be able to raise the capital to ensure Cummins victory and Boakai victory, rather?
I mean, we'll have to see, but Mr. Cummins has said the time will outnumber that. If he lose the primary, CPP primary, he will accept the result. He will support the victor. Mr. Cummins is not going to be self-financing.
That must be a political statement.
Well, we have no other way of determining what Mr. Cummins' views are. Mr. Cummins has stated very clearly, has committed himself to supporting the ticket. But keep in mind that Cummins is not going to be 100% financing even his own campaign. And the donors that are willing to support a Cummins presidency may not want to support Boakai's presidency, which is fair. Because if
it is the support of friends and other donor partners,
who are not part of the
it's contingent on Kumi being the head of the CPP ticket, Dembwaka. So Kumi may not be able to divert that support of his donor to tell him to direct it to Baka, right?
Yeah, because he has to respect these people. It's not his money. You want to give money to people you trust, and you trust people based on relationship. And so Cummins has had a relationship with these people that trust him. It'll be difficult. He can push for it, but it will be their decision. And it's easier to say that not a lot of them will be willing to transfer that trust.
Okay, so you can just give your parting comment. You have another platform to go to. You can just give your parting comment so we can take leave of you.
All right, thanks for having me. No, it's just to say that number one, the by-election results are good. They're good in terms of the fact that
it does not have any impact on the CPP as an opposition. It is good.
It has impact. It gives us bad PR. It allows the government to spin a narrative that CPP is declining, right?
But the government to lost.
Right. But the government will try to emphasize ours. That's politics. But what I was going to say is that it's important to keep the point in mind that all of the victors, all of the people that won were opposition people. And that it shows that CPP has more room to grow. CPP has more opportunity to attract people that are showing themselves to be strong forces within the opposition. We can expand. That's totally doable. Then the next point is that the CPP needs to focus now on organizing a successful primary, laying the basis for a successful primary, which is paying your
you think that is possible? You think that is possible?
Yes, it's possible because despite all the noise, nobody has walked away yet.
With the complaints from the camp of Ambassador Joseph Baka, his supporters are arguing that the Unity Party should walk away from the CPP.
They've been saying this for over a month, Julius. How difficult is it to write a letter that you want to withdraw? They've never done it. That means they're bluffing. And so I don't think they're gonna do it. They don't have the guts. They're not sure they can win on their own. They won't walk away.
You think that there will be a primary and there will be a unanimous consensus from the CPP to support a single candidate that even the Unity Party supporters will support?
I'm not a fortune teller. But if United Party walk away from the CPP, it will be difficult for them to raise funds. Their explanation to donors who's going to give them money. United Party is more donor dependent. United Party is more dependent on donors. And because Joseph Baka does not have a lot of personal resources that he can use to start funding the process. And every time donor hear conflict in the CPP, it puts a hole in the United Party argument for funds. If they have funds, if their members were optimistic and they were making donations to them, and they had a financial base, then they could move on with their plans. But as they're making their plans, they have to share them with donors. So who's going to finance the Unity Party single-handed campaign? All of the other players that UP wants to leave with, the ALP, Benona Yue, if he gives a dime, he wants to be vice president. Nyomli Kanga Lawrence will not bring money. She will claim she's bringing Grand Basso. So United Party is simply bluffing. I think they're going nowhere. They don't have the guts to leave. They fear if they leave, they will lose.
Okay. Thank you for coming on the Focus on Liberia Freedom of Information Hour. We're glad to host you today. So we can now take leave of you, Mr. Menipeka Domwe. We want to say to our listening audience, this is the Freedom of Information Hour air on the Focus on Liberia platform every Thursday, 4 p.m. Liberian time to 6 p.m. We bring you socio-political and economic unfoldings within the Republic of Liberia. Thank you for watching. Thank you for following us. We will be next on this platform next week, Thursday, same time and the same platform to be able to talk about our country. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Julius T. Jaesen II.
We are Labira. Labira is our home. Labira people.